We had the latest trailer for the upcoming movie Venom: The Last Dance drop just yesterday as we're recording this, actually, and it's driving like 90% of the books on this list. Have you seen the trailer yet?
I absolutely have, and because of this trailer, I know I'm going to owe someone an apology. Wait until number one for that to happen. Right now, click the like, slap the subscribe. We've been here every single week for the last 6.5 years, and my buddy Ryan's going to take us away with number 10.
Get used to this. Number 10 on the list, symbiote stuff. Venom War, number 1. This just came out last month, the first week of August. We're seeing $6 average sales for this book, which is cover price. This is a symbiote kind of crossover event book. It's not really a crossover. It's all contained within the symbiote Spider-Man, villain universe. But you have Eddie Brock and Dylan Brock, who have both been kind of the main characters of Al Ewing's Venom run since the beginning. They are sort of beefing over who's going to be the main Venom symbiote wielder going forward. This book is on the list because it's the first appearance of the Venom horse, which has sort of been the standout character of the both of the most recent trailers for Venom 3. I was kind of surprised to see it show up again in the new trailer this week, but it's clearly a focus of this movie in some capacity. And we've even got variants done by Clayton Crane featuring the Venom horse on, it looks like, every single issue of the Venom War book. You've got one for issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, and they've also confirmed that he will be doing one for numbers 4 and 5, but we just don't have the art for that yet.
A 177% increase in copies sold this week for a book that is new this last month. And just to go to the other side of the spectrum, we are traveling all the way back to 1967 for number 9 on the list, Amazing Spider-Man number 50. First appearance of Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Now, we are reporting $2,500 average on this book, and that includes things like a recent 9.0 high sale for $4,920, but also a recent 6.0 sale for $1,036. This is a classic book that I think every Spider-Man collector should have in their collection, and I know that you can still get raw copies in the $200 to $300 range if you're okay with lower grading books. Now, there is speculation that Wilson Fisk is going to be the big baddie in the new Spider-Man movie, and I am 100% on board with this. The fact that we've seen Kingpin in Daredevil it's a cool thing, but Kingpin didn't show up in Daredevil until 1981 in Daredevil number 170, which is the middle of the Frank Miller run. The fact that he had been terrorizing Spider-Man for almost 20 years beforehand really shows who his main nemesis is.
And that book is seeing a 111% increase in copies sold. And yeah, it would be cool to see Wilson Fisk in a Spider-Man movie, but we do know we'll be getting him more soon in the Daredevil Born Again show that is coming up in just a few months, early next year. Make sure to check out the Key Collector Trending 20 list, by the way. Use code TOM101 to get a free 2-week trial of the paid version of that app where you can see twice as many books as we talk about on this very list. Even though most of them are symbiote books this week, there's a whole bunch more on that list that aren't, actually. 9 out of 20 of all of the books this week are symbiote stuff, but this next one is not a symbiote book.
No symbiotes in this next book. Number 8 on the list, Toxic Avenger. Number 1, we are reporting $25 average sales and a high $120 sale for a CGC 9.8 back in July. We have a 150% increase in copies sold this week on new Toxic Avenger hopes and a new series coming out.
We talked about this book last year when the movie was premiered to the crowd at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas. The movie's done. It's completed. It's ready to go. Peter Dinklage, the star of the movie, was actually asked about it while doing press for his current movie that's coming out called The Thicket, and he had this to say.
I do want it to get out there into the world because it was a really big hit at Fantastic Fest. So hopefully it will have its day in the toxic sun.
For the legion of fans that traveled to Austin to watch this movie, I am very envious of you. And this is a movie that I think people need to be able to see. But Peter Dinklage and a lot of the rest of the people working on this movie need to remember that most of these trauma movies that came out back in the 80s and 90s were released straight to VHS. They were released direct to video at every single one of your video stores. Go to Crazy Mike's, go to Blockbuster Video. You couldn't really see it anywhere else. It would make a lot of sense for this to go direct to streaming, something like Shudder. HBO Max could probably pick this up, and you'd get a lot of traction out of this movie.
Also, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but Ahoy Comics is actually dropping a new Toxic Avenger run just starting next month, actually, October 9th. This hits shelves.
And now we're moving from Toxie to Toxin.
Well done, Russ. We're here at number 7 on the list. Venom versus Carnage, issue number 2. This is concerning Patrick Mulligan, who we actually talked about just a few months ago. His first appearance is in issue number 1 of this series, but in issue 2 here, he actually becomes Toxin, the spawn of Carnage. We're seeing $50 average sales, and we had a 9.8 hit, 157 last month back in August. There's a 300% increase in copies sold of this book because we know this guy's going to be in the movie. He's played by Stephen Graham, who, again, I love from Boardwalk Empire. He played Al Capone. Go watch that show. We saw him catch a symbiote. He got infected with a symbiote at the end of the last movie. And in the trailers for this movie, again, I mean, both trailers, they're kind of emphasizing this. He is held captive in this like symbiote research laboratory or something, and it looks like. We also got a glimpse of a new symbiote that was from a clip of the movie that was pulled from the internet. So we don't know exactly who this character is, but it could be Toxin.
The fact that we already know the name of his character and who he becomes is absolutely driving this book.
That one makes sense to me. Something else that makes sense to me is Darkseid. We've got Forever People issue number 1 here at number 6 on the list. $180 average sales, $250 for a 9.2 last week. There's a 400% increase in copies sold on this book. Probably because it looks like DC is about to refocus on Darkseid.
Darkseid has been the big baddie in the DC universe since DC Comics poached Jack Kirby from Marvel Comics and had him debut Darkseid's cameo in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 134. But when we finally had the Forever People show up, we really got to see Darkseid in his full power. So this makes sense when all of a sudden we have the brand new All-In initiative being architected by Scott Snyder. They're planning on using Darkseid as the big baddie. Now, one of the announcements that we had recently was that we are going to have new absolute Batman, absolute Superman, and absolute Wonder Woman. This is kind of DC's version of the Ultimate Universe. But this All-In initiative is going to take the current DC continuity and the new absolute continuity and have them together. Even in the promotional poster, it is very clear that Darkseid is the centerpiece, exactly where he deserves to be as the big baddie in DC.
And as a fan of current ongoing books, and as a DC fan especially, I am very much looking forward to All In. The Absolute books look like a lot of fun. I am very excited to see Tom Taylor taking over Detective Comics. Philip Kennedy Johnson is taking over Batman and Robin. We've got Dan Waters on Nightwing. Tom King's going to be writing a Black Canary story. There's just a lot of really cool, new, exciting things that are happening here at DC. It's a perfect time to jump on board.
I agree wholeheartedly, Ryan. I think not enough people are reading DC, and our DC readership numbers are dropping off drastically, but they are really some of the best stories out there, and with some amazing writers coming back for this initiative, I'm very excited.
Number 5, we've got Thor God of Thunder, issue number 6 from 2013. This is part of Jason Aaron's run. We've got $20 average sales for this book and a 9.8 hit, $160 earlier this month. However, we did see a 9.8 hit, $54 just back in July before the Venom trailer, before we got the announcement of Null. This book has the first cameo appearance of Null, actually. It's got the origin of Gore the God Butcher, who's the villain in the movie Thor Love and Thunder, which was not very good. They did not handle this character very well in that movie, Gore. So it's been always kind of interesting to me how there's been this connection between those two characters. There's a 433% increase in copies sold of this book just since the trailer dropped for Venom The Last Dance.
Oh, I almost forgot how bad Gore the God Butcher was in Love and Thunder.
Yeah, they really butchered this adaptation of Gore the God Butcher. It was great in the Jason Aaron run. You got to read that book. It's one of the better runs of that decade even. But especially because Sony is handling these Spider-Man movies, and Null will be featuring in Venom 3. It's a Sony movie. They don't have the best track record with these characters. I'm a little pessimistic on this one. But if you want more background information on the character of Null, besides reading the obvious Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman run on Venom, you need to check out Silver Surfer Black by Donny Cates and Trad Moore. Not only is it just trippy and it's a feast for the eyes, but you do get some cool early, far past history stuff about Null in that book.
As with every trailer that is released, it has been poured over, combed through, and dissected by every single person. If you were paying attention, you would have seen a planet known as Clintar. And on the list at number 4, we have Guardians of the Galaxy number 23, first appearance of the planet Clintar, origin of all of these symbiotes. We are seeing $15 average sales and $100 for a CGC 9.8 this last week. But if you looked back to April, it was $47 was what this book was selling for. So it is very clear that the trailer is driving this book as much as a 450% increase.
just to get this part out of the way, this is a gorgeous cover done by Christian Ward, one of my favorite artists. That alone, I think, makes this book worth looking at. But we do get a lot of cool background info on Clintar, the planets, the symbiotes, all that stuff that further gets expounded later on in the early part of Donny Cates' run when you get some background info on the fact that this planet isn't really a planet. It's just a complete mass of a whole bunch of symbiotes that are forming an enormous prison to keep Null there. And whenever we see Null throughout the pages of the Donny Cates run, at least in the early parts of that run, he's actually using like a husk to communicate to Eddie Brock and everybody there while he's stuck, trapped in the planet Clintar. It's some badass stuff. You really got to read the Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman run on Venom. More on that later.
We are getting into the end of summer, Ryan, and we got to finish this number before it melts. Number 3 on the list, Ice Cream Man. Number 1, $250 average sales and $428 for a recent CGC 9.8. This was a great horror anthology series, and I think everyone should be reading Ice Cream Man. We've talked about it before on the list. Why is it here now?
Well, Russ, we're seeing a 433% increase in copies sold on this book this week because it was optioned this week for a movie. It was previously optioned as a TV show back when Quibi was a platform. I don't know if you remember that streaming service, but they apparently focused on like really short form content, which makes sense. Ice Cream Man is an anthology. You can pick up any issue and read it. It's all self-contained. It's a great horror book. You need to read it. Go pick up the hardcover Sunday editions. Those are really cool. I've got them myself. This just makes sense. It was optioned this week by Alfred Gow and Miles Millar, who are actually pretty prolific. They're the showrunners of Smallville. They created Wednesday on Netflix, which is a huge, successful show, and they actually just wrote the new Beetlejuice movie. It seems like this is in pretty good hands, but we also did just get a mysterious image posted from Image Comics social media this week with Grant Morrison. That's what it says. It says Grant Morrison, and underneath there looks to be some ice cream. I don't know if that means Grant Morrison is going to take over writing Ice Cream Man from W. Maxwell Prince, who has written the whole run so far. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe Grant Morrison's just going to come on for one issue or one part of an issue or something. Maybe this is completely unrelated, but it happened this week, the same week the movie option was announced. Coincidence? If you are one of the lucky few people who happen to be watching this video the day that it drops, today, Sunday, is the final day to sign up for the September mystery mail call. One of the books in this box actually has a lot of relevance now that we have the new Venom trailer, the new Venom The Last Dance trailer featuring Null, because we're dropping an exclusive for Venom number 35, which is the final issue of the Donny Cates run. It's immediately after the death of Null in the final issue of King in Black. Spoilers for a 4-year-old event comic. We've got a cool variant in here done by Miko Swyan.
And an amazing Wolverine Revenge red band cover, polybagged and everything, with incredible cover art by John Boy Myers.
ComicTom101.com link is down in the description. If you want to support what we do, we would appreciate it. We love you very much. We only have 2 numbers left. We're here at number 2 on the list. Amazing Spider-Man number 316. This book is as old as I am, 1989. $125 average sales. I love throwing that in your face, Russ.
Every time that makes me feel so old.
You're old. $125 average sales. We saw a $600. This is actually really interesting. We saw a $600 9.8 sale on September 6th. The next day, we saw a $470 sale. September 7th, both for a 9.8. You know what the difference was?
Absolutely, and I think this is one of those things that people need to pay attention to when they are submitting their books to CGC. Only 1 day's difference, both sold on eBay, both were buy it now, but the reason why someone paid $600 for this book and someone paid $470 for this book is because they paid for the custom label. CGC, when you are submitting, will allow you to get a custom label for some specific books. Not all books can get a custom label, but like Spider-Man related, Venom related, you're going to be able to see, like when George Perez was doing a signing before he passed away, there was a Perez one. You can get X-Men number 1. And it's really only $5 more. And sometimes you will see a massive uptick in demand when you have that custom art label. Always worth looking into if you want to maximize the value on your books.
Beyond that, we're seeing a 500% increase in copies sold of this book across the board, and that makes sense. This is the 3rd appearance of Venom, but it is his first full cover appearance, and it's an iconic cover. It makes sense. We got the trailer this week. Venom's coming out in just over a month. We're probably going to see a lot more symbiote stuff on these lists moving forward.
But before we get to number 1, I do want to issue a sincere apology to the person that came into the shop about a month and a half ago, tried to sell me their recent comic book collection from the last decade, and I told them I wasn't really interested. And they specifically pointed to this next book, and I said, I just don't see it happening. I don't believe that Null is showing up anytime in the very near future. Well, the trailer this week made me eat my words, and number 1 on the list this week, Venom number 3, the first appearance of Null from the amazing Donny Cates Venom run. $150 average sales, CGC 9.8, high sale $320, but there have been over 30 sales of this book in a 9.8, ranging between $200 and $320 in the last 24 hours of the recording of this video, and I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon, and the peak on this book is probably going to creep up over the next coming weeks.
All in all, we're seeing a 541% increase in copies sold of this book since the Null announcement in the trailer. And again, I will just throw out one more recommendation here. You got to read this run. This is one of the best runs of modern comics, if you ask me. I think this is probably the best run of Marvel Comics in the last decade. Maybe The Immortal Hulk? I don't know. That's a hard question. I actually want to ask the audience, what do you think is the best Marvel Comics run of the last decade? For me, it's probably got to be Venom. We actually did an homage to this cover for our comic that Tom and I wrote called Crashdown. Crashdown number 3, because, of course, we wanted to homage Venom number 3. We homaged this exact cover by Ryan Stegman.
This trailer has a bunch of stuff going on, and this Donny Cates run starts with the introduction of Null, and then Null is the big baddie in Marvel for the next couple years until the King in Black event. If this movie does in fact adapt all the way through King in Black, we may not see a whole lot more of Null, but if they are just planting these seeds, this character could be around for a long time.
We've been talking a lot about the possibility for the symbiote to cross over into the greater MCU, and if that's the case, it would make sense to see Null maybe make that hop, skip, and a jump over to the MCU as well. Fingers crossed, because that would be really, really cool. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're sorry Tom's not here, but he'll be back next week. Until then, make sure you hit the like, the subscribe, all that other fun YouTube stuff down below, and as always,
Geek responsibly.
Enough said.